I never expected a job as a caretaker would turn into a heartwarming love story. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The rain pelted down, darkening the sky and my mood. I stepped into the musty old house, the air thick with the weight of memories silently screaming from the walls. I felt a chill run down my spine. There, in the corner, was Sylvia. She sat in her chair, an ancient blanket bunched around her knees, eyes clouded yet piercing. I swallowed hard, heart pounding. This was not just any job. Sylvia had been a piano prodigy, they said. Once played for kings and queens. But Alzheimer's had twisted her mind into a fog, trapping those memories in a vault she could no longer access. I was the one tasked with keeping her company, but what was I really here for? Her son, Mark, was the one who had interviewed me. Those deep-set eyes, it was as if they held secrets I couldn't even fathom. When he left the room, the tension hung heavy between us. I felt the space fill with unspoken words. He would come back to check on her, but he looked as lost as she often did. Days blurred into one another. I learned to navigate the chaos of her lost thoughts. She would have bursts of clarity that burned through the fog, and I'd catch a glimpse of the brilliant woman she used to be. Those moments, they were electric. Once, she smiled, and it felt like the sun had broken through the storm clouds. But just as quickly, she'd slip away again, leaving behind a haunting emptiness. The backstory unfolded slowly. Mark had devoted his life to taking care of his mother, but the weight of it all was crushing him. I watched him struggle, saw the way his hands trembled as he adjusted her blanket. It was hard to reconcile this grief-stricken man with the little boy within, still holding on to pieces of her music. One cloudy night, my own heart was heavy. I stepped outside for a breath of fresh air, the world silent around me. But there was Mark, pacing back and forth. He looked sound-raveled. Instinct kicked in. I approached, and when our eyes met, I felt an undeniable connection. His pain resonated in my chest. But just as I was about to speak, we were interrupted by a sudden clap of thunder. Startled, we both froze. A premonition of something dark sat in the air. And in that moment, I realized, I didn't just want to care for Sylvia. I wanted to know Mark. I wanted to understand his story. And then, through the rain, came a piercing scream from inside the house. My stomach dropped. Something wasn't right. What had I stepped into? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The scream sliced through the damp air like a jagged knife, paralyzing me in place. Mark and I mustered the will to move, bursting toward the door, panic thrusting us forward. I glanced at Mark. His face was contorted in concern. It was the first time I had truly seen him afraid. Inside the house, Sylvia's chair was empty, the blanket slipping to the floor in a forgotten heap. My heart raced as we dashed past the mantel cluttered with dust-coated photographs, memories that no longer had an owner. Mark's face paled as he called out for her, his voice echoing through the silence, growing more frantic with each syllable that we searched the dimly lit rooms, crisscrossing each other in a chaotic dance of anxiety. I hurried to the bedroom, taking the lead, and stopped short. Sylvia stood at the window, soaking in the rain that poured from the heavens as if seeking solace in its rhythm. A fractured reflection stared back at me, a ghost of the woman who had captivated the world in her prime and now looked like a lost soul searching for something just out of reach. Mom. Mark's voice cracked, fear sharp in its timbre. This was not just confusion, we both felt it deep in our bones. Something more profound was at work. That I am waiting for my music, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rain. It was a revelation cloaked in despair. The urgency in her tone turned my heart inside out. This was what Mark had been carrying. His mother was still there, beneath layers of memory lost in a tumultuous sea. Mom, well, find it, Mark implored, stepping closer. The music, it's right here. Just tell me where to find it. His gaze was fierce, desperate for connection, for understanding. Suddenly, I was overwhelmed with a sense of resolve. Maybe I hesitated, unsure if it was right to push into this fragile moment, but regret coiled around my chest. Maybe we can create it. Their eyes snapped to mine, surprise etched on their faces. What do you mean? Mark asked, his brow furrowing, absorbing this new direction. Let's play for her, I suggested, the idea taking form amidst the lingering shadows of the room. There might be pieces of her memory in the music she once loved. If you remember any of her songs, we can try to replicate them. Mark hesitated, shadows passed across his features, the sheer weight of responsibility clashing with desperate hope. But something shifted within him, a tiny flicker igniting behind those exhausted eyes. Okay, he breathed, as if finally giving himself permission to believe. That we gathered in the living room, the old piano standing like a relic bathed in memories of brilliance and despair. Mark brushed off dust from the keys, revealing a beauty hidden for years. I settled beside him as he tentatively ran his fingers over the keys, a soft tune escaping, almost inaudible. I hummed along, weaving my voice into the fragile sound that wrapped around us, filling the space with tentative warmth. Sylvia watched, her eyes lighting up like embers catching fire. That's it! She exclaimed, her voice stronger now, gaining confidence. Keep playing. Keep playing. In that moment, the storm outside morphed into a symphony rather than chaos. The rain became our applause. Mark let himself go, gradually losing himself in the notes as I joined in harmony, our voices colluding to revive the echoes of the past. But just as the music reached a crescendo, Sylvia's attention waned again. Her eyes clouded over, the moments we'd captured slipping away like water through our fingers. The melody fell flat, extinguishing the brief hope we had nurtured. A tear trickled down Mark's cheek, and I felt my heart shatter at the sight of his anguish. Just then, I heard the faintest rustle from behind me. I turned, and my breath caught in my throat. An envelope lay on the floor, untouched by the chaos that surrounded us. It was marked with the name Sylvia, smudged and worn. I picked it up, heart racing, acutely aware of the gravity of this moment. Mark, I stammered, I think this is for her. He looked at the envelope, a mix of dread and curiosity playing on his face. We both knew that whatever was inside could change everything or confirm our deepest fears. Open it, Mark urged gently, his expression so vulnerable that it tugged at my heartstrings. The adrenaline coursed through me as I opened the envelope, revealing pages of scribbled notes, music sheets that appeared to be compositions long forgotten. But just as I began to decipher the familiar notes on the page, Sylvia's scream erupted once more, drowning out everything else. It's gone. You've taken it from me. Her eyes glared at me, full of terror and accusation, and suddenly the world felt precarious, as if time itself was unraveling. My blood ran cold. What had I uncovered? My heart raced as I clutched the letter tightly, certain that the dark cloud above this house was about to consume us all. Mark grabbed my arm tightly, eyes wide with confusion and fear. What is happening? He whispered, realization dawning in his voice, and then, just like that, the rain outside softened, quieting to a whisper, leaving only the echo of the past looming heavily around us. The tranquility following Sylvia's scream seemed to swirl into something almost palpable, a suffocating silence that enveloped us in its chilling grip. My heartbeat echoed in my ears, drowning out the soothing pitter-patter of the rain. I could barely breathe, the weight of Sylvia's accusatory gaze and the letter's unyielding secrets urging me to deflect attention from myself. Mark's hand trembled on my arm as if he were holding on to the last vestige of clarity in a storm of chaos. What do you mean it's gone? He asked, his voice wavering, caught between despair and disbelief. Sylvia took a step closer, her expression morphing before us. One moment she was the doting mother, and in the next, she was lost, a wildness in her eyes that frightened and bewildered me. Your music, it was taken. Someone stole it. Her voice cracked, and I could feel the tremors of her grief resonate in the air. This world is a thief, and I am but a ghost without it. Mom, please, Mark implored, fear slicing through his words. We're here to bring it back to you. Just tell us what you mean that I can't, she choked out, twisting her fingers through the air, grasping for meaning, yet finding only shadows. You wouldn't understand. It's too late for me. No. I thought, feeling the heat of frustration burn in my chest. It's not too late. Please, Sylvia. Just let us help. Mark's brow knitted tighter. What do you mean someone took it from you? Was it another musician? Sylvia recoiled, tears spilling from her eyes, blurring the complex web of emotions that threaded through the room. No, it was me. I sacrificed it. I chased away the memories to stave off the pain. Her voice dwindled to a whisper, panic swirling like a tempest behind her gaze. My heart raced as I processed her words. Why would you do that? A moment hung painfully between us as Sylvia's irises glinted with the heaviness of old ghosts. Because love hurts, she murmured, the admission turning the air heavy with unspoken regrets. Because sometimes the music isn't worth the heartbreak it causes. As if a dam had burst, Mark stepped forward, desperation igniting in his voice. We can help you remember. We can play more. Look, I have the music. He was on the precipice of a breakdown, his hope teetering upon the fragile ledge of uncertainty. With shaking hands, I moved closer to Sylvia. You have to let us in, Sylvia. Show us how you feel, we can create something beautiful together. I held out the letter casually, despite the storm brewing within. This music, it's yours. You gave it life once, can't we breathe into it together again? Sylvia's gaze softened as she finally focused on the pages in my hand, the ink smeared in my grip. Her expression was one of fluttering recognition as she read the first few lines. But it's not complete, she murmured, a fleeting breath of hope glimmering within her eyes. Mark, still caught in turmoil, reached for the piano once more. The stool creaked under his weight as his fingers brushed the keys, each note spilling choices between desperation and new beginnings. The melody returned, a ripple of warmth washing over me, binding us all again in that sacred blend of sound. Suddenly, Sylvia trembled, a wafting vulnerability shifting through her. I remember, she breathed, almost inaudibly. Not the names, but the feelings. The notes were once my heartbeat, and now the music changed, but so did Sylvia. Her spirit seemed to awaken, if only for a brief moment, until another flash of realization shadowed her gaze. But to bring it back, I must forfeit you, Mark. He froze, stricken at her words. What do you mean? Mark's voice was a low rumble, confusion clawing at his sense of safety. You don't have to lose anything, every note carries a price, Sylvia whispered, her hands trembling as she gestured between us. To embrace the song is to let someone go. I cannot cling to both, fear prickled against my skin. A choice, a painful decision that threatened to tear them apart even as they fought to reclaim their bond. I could scarcely breathe, understanding the weight of her words pressing against my heart. Suddenly, the letter slipped from my fingers, fluttering to the floor, and everything halted as we stared at it, breath caught in our throats. I will do it, Sylvia declared, her voice resolute with determination. I will let it all go. I will set everyone free. It's the only way. The world around us began to dissolve, time twisted, stretching and contorting through the layers of her resolve. I felt the ground tremble beneath me, the air thick with emotion that thrummed like a sorrowful tune. Mark gripped my hand, squeezing tightly, and as he looked into my eyes, I saw not just fear but a flicker of hope that ignited like a flame caught in the wind. Don't let her do this, he pleaded, the echo of his words reverberating through the air. But behind Sylvia's clouded gaze, the gleam of a powerful decision reflected one that I feared, one that could sever ties forged through grief and love in cruel finality. And then, darkness enveloped us as reality began to warp and shift, a final crescendo swelling against the backdrop of a thunderous heart both beautiful and terrifying. The music swirled around us, promising to reveal a truth that had long lain dormant, leaving me breathless with the sudden weight of revelation. What was she willing to sacrifice? And would it lead to liberation or a deeper entanglement of grief? In that moment, I felt everything tilt, as if the universe had staked its claim, and there was no turning back. As the darkness swallowed us, reality twisted and contorted, pulling us deeper into the depths of Sylvia's heart, a place filled with both melody and despair. The music swirled chaotically like leaves caught in a tempest. I felt Mark's fingers thread through mine, a lifeline amidst the chaos that beckoned from the shadows of Sylvia's past. That I and that suffocating void, whispers of memories danced just beyond reach. Ghostly echoes of laughter, sorrow, and hope drifted alongside the haunting notes that marked Sylvia's soul. What if the music isn't lost at all? I thought, desperately grasping at the intangible threads of connection swirling around us. What if it's simply waiting to be reawakened? It dawned on me that Sylvia's sacrifice didn't have to be isolation. It could be an offering, an invitation to step inside the symphony of her spirit, to nurture the untamed pieces that lay dormant. Sylvia, I called out into the void, my voice threading through the darkness. What if the path to reclaiming your music is to share it? You don't have to forfeit love to find your song. The weight of my words felt heavy, yet a flicker of possibility illuminated the corners of silence that had swallowed us. On the brink of despair, I took a step closer to her fading essence. What if we create something new? My heart pounded in the rhythm of my hope. From your memories, your pain, and our love, we can write a symphony that encompasses everything and everyone you hold dear. As the last note of despair hung in the air, the darkness seemed to waver, revealing fleeting glimpses of light, a world beyond the shadows. But Sylvia's gaze was still laced with uncertainty, each lingering memory around her becoming more like a prison than a refuge. You don't understand, she whispered, anguish threading her voice. If I embrace the music, I risk losing everything again. The chaos will return, and if everything isn't perfect, I can't. Mark's grip on my hand tightened, as if he were interlinking our fates. Mom, we've weathered storms before. We can weather this together, he encouraged, his eyes burning with the resoluteness of a warrior. You don't have to fight this alone. But Sylvia stepped back, the ethereal glow of understanding warring with her fear. There's no guarantee, she lamented, her heartache palpable, a fissure splitting the very air between us. Even if I chose to remember, what if it drives you away like before? I can't bear to harm you both for the sake of my music. A wave of vulnerability enveloped the room, lingering like the scent of rain on warm earth. Though the shadows loomed, small moments of warmth flickered like stars against the expansive night. I could see it in Mark's fierce determination, the quiet resolve that anchored me amidst Sylvia's tumult. The reflection of empathy in his eyes held a promise. We will help you hold on to your song. The darkness began to pulse as if responding to our shared resolve, and a soft glow emerged in the peripheries. I took a step forward, breaking the tension that ensnared us, allowing the warmth of my voice to seep through the void. What if we let the music evolve? Not merely to resurrect the past but to build a future. It was then I reached for the letter again, the pages crinkled and worn, yet imbued with the pulse of Saliva's spirit. Let's weave your memories with our present. Let us fill these notes with our stories, our triumphs, our losses, but most importantly, our love. No price is too great for that. Mark nodded, the gentleness in his eyes softening the sharp edges of grief. Together, we'll create something beautiful, Mom. We're so much stronger as a trio than we are alone. But just as hope began to unfurl, Sylvia's expression twisted under the weight of decision. But at what cost? She whispered, a haunting reverence tracing the edges of fear. What if that beauty demands a sacrifice none of us is prepared to make? As if conjured by her words, the darkness thickened, and shadows grew longer, suffocating our light. An unbearable truth unfurled, sending shivers through my spine. No, not again, I thought, helpless against the implications of her hesitation. Then, a chilling realization gripped my heart. What if Sylvia's deep-seated fear of loss wasn't just of love, but of the deeper, darker parts of herself she was willing to cast away? What if embracing her music meant embracing the turmoil she had tried so hard to escape? Before I could voice my fears, a sickening crack echoed through the void, reverberating like the final note of a broken symphony. I turned to Mark, but he was already faltering, his gaze flitting between hope and despair. "Please, Mom, don't let it go." Tears streamed down Sylvia's cheeks, and her voice trembled as she whispered, "I love you both so much. But if I hold you too closely, if I choose to remember, all I know is that it could consume me." In that moment, the air thickened and twisted, and a deafening silence echoed in the aftermath of her confession. Clarity struck. We were at a precipice of unimaginable choices. Then abruptly, the darkness expanded with a swirling force, the tendrils of sound amplified in a cacophony, a prelude to a climactic finale. My heart raced as my breath caught, foreboding and anticipation colliding like storm clouds above. The realization washed over me. Each choice carried the weight of unspoken love, and the potential to reshape everything lay within our grasp. But lingering just beyond the light was the specter of sacrificial loss. "Mom!" Mark's voice pierced through the growing void, his tone laced with urgency, but the darkness thickened like fog, stifling sound and meaning, until all that remained was an unbearable choice hanging in the shadows, full of haunting promise and unrelenting fear. Where would this lead us? Would Sylvia embrace the music, or let it slip through her fingers like sand? And as the void consumed us yet again, I felt the gnawing sense that we were on the brink of irreparable Chanhea storm just waiting to break. The darkness pulsated around us, a living thing that pushed against my chest, filling the space with an ominous weight that made it hard to breathe. I felt Mark's hand tighten in mine, a silent affirmation of our shared resolve even as fear clawed at the edges of my mind. The symphony of Sylvia's past lingered like a distant siren, calling us deeper into her heart while echoes of her pain threatened to drown us all. "Sylvia," I whispered gently, trying to pierce through the shadows with my voice. "There's a magnificent power in your song, and we're not just your past. We're also a part of your present and your future. We need you, and I believe you need us too." But Sylvia's brow furrowed with conflicting emotions, shadows playing across her features. "What if you unknowingly drag me into the very chaos I've fought against? Dredging up memories of pain and loss could shatter what little peace I still possess." Her voice cracked, and I felt the force of her fear. "Mom, you have to trust us," Mark urged, his voice rising above the ominous pulse of the darkness. "Remember when I learned to ride that bike? It was terrifying at first, falling countless times. But with you cheering me on, I found the courage to get back up. We want to be your foundational support, just like you were for me." The way Mark spoke, with such warmth and love, felt like a candle flickering bravely against the dark. Yet I could almost see the chasm in Sylvia's heart, the rift of uncertainties that stretched further than any shadow surrounding us. Every word she hesitated to speak carried the weight of losses that haunted her and held her captive. "I don't want to be a burden," Sylvia finally admitted, her voice a mere whisper, nearly lost among the creeping shadows. "My struggle, it has always been mine to bear." Suddenly, amidst the swirling chaos, a wisp of a melody floated into the air, a gentle reminder of light. It was a fragment of a song that once filled our home with laughter, a half-remembered lullaby that we had sung together on rainy afternoons. The notes danced hesitantly in the gloom, offering a glimmer of hope. "Mom, do you remember this?" I found myself singing softly, the words spilling from my heart as if the music itself was guiding me. "It's okay to lean on us. You're not alone, it's alright to share your burden. Well, hold it together." The song hung in the air, and slowly, Sylvia's eyes flickered with recognition. That light, the warmth of love and connection, tempered her trepidation, if only slightly. "I remember," she breathed as tears spilled down her cheeks. "But what if embracing this means letting go of the past that has protected me for so long?" There was no easy answer. The shadows twisted, disentangling themselves from the corners of our small sanctuary, but the vague tendril of hope seemed ever present. Mark stepped closer, as if the force of his resilience alone could thaw the darkness gripping our hearts. "Mom, think of it as growing. Music evolves just as we do. It's not about letting go of your past, it's about integrating it, accepting it as a part of your ever-evolving symphony." In the silence that followed, the air felt charged, alive with possibility. Sylvia closed her eyes and took a deep breath as though drawing in the very essence of her memories. A moment passed, and then another, until finally, a faint glow erupted within her. It flickered like the tentative light of dawn, promising the arrival of something new, something alive with potential. That I glanced at Mark, and we exchanged a knowing look, a shared understanding that the way forward would still be shrouded in darkness, but we would face it together. Just as the flickers of hope began to intertwine with the suffocating shadows, a sudden noise pierced the stillness, a distant crashing sound followed by anguished cries echoing in the distance. The serene moment shattered like glass, splintering my thoughts and sending raw fear rushing back in. What was that? I gasped, my heart racing as dread seeped through my veins. Mom! Mark shouted, his expression turning from hope to terror. Something's happening, let's get out of here. But as I turned to Sylvia, her expression had transformed, the flickers of light diminishing. No! She cried, reaching out and gripping my arm with an intensity that sent shivers rippling down my spine. I can't leave. I need to remember, I need to confront my memories, not just for me, but also for you both. I can't run from this. The force of her resolve sent shockwaves through me, awakening something dormant within that felt unnervingly powerful. But what if it's dangerous? Mark urged as shadows recoiled at Sylvia's bravery, the darkness drawing back in response to her intentions. Everything worth having carries risk, my loves, Sylvia said, her voice imbued with raw determination. The choice is not to ignore the darkness, it's to wield it. Oh, let it be a part of the music we are creating together. The distant cries grew fainter but still lingered like a horrible specter. I could hardly respond as I watched Sylvia's transformation unfold, her silhouette glowing amidst the thick shadows. With that shimmer of light, it became undeniably clear that she stood at the precipice of a choice that might change everything. Yet, beneath it all, an unsettling thought began to take root, a scintilla of doubt nagging at the edges of my resolve. What if battling the darkness meant stirring something within Sylvia that had long been dormant? Anger, grief, and chaos that could consume her whole. As I was about to voice my worries, a sudden rush erupted from the darkness, higher and more tumultuous than anything we had faced before. It bore down on us with fierce intensity, and I could feel the fear clawing at my throat, threatening to spill over in a wave of panic. Now. We need to move. Mark shouted, grabbing my hand as he unfurled a path through the chaos. But as I turned to grasp Sylvia's hand as well, I felt her pull away, her eyes ablaze with a defiant kind of fire that I choose to remember. She shouted, her voice roaring against the chaos, making the very air vibrate with her fierce declaration. I'm ready to reclaim my music, and am taking you both with me whether you like it or not. Beneath those words, I felt an exhilarating rush of hope and terror, torn between the allure of Sylvia's courage and the pounding dread that warred beneath the surface. In that moment, I realized that we were not simply navigating her past, we were stepping into the unknown, a deeper darkness that might crush us all or free us to find the symphony hidden within. As the shadows writhed around us, vibrant and wild, I was left grappling with a single, horrifying thought. Indeed, love could be both beautiful and devastating, a melody that could give rise to strength or shatter everything we held dear. In that moment, as the shattering crescendo rose around us, I felt the unyielding pull of fate. The symphony was calling, and with it came an unforgiving choice. What awaited on the other side remained cloaked in uncertainty, but in that storm, one truth rang clear: there was no turning back. The cacophony engulfed us, a thundering reminder of all that lay before us. I grasped Mark's hand tighter, his heartbeat a steady reminder of our shared bond, a tether that could not be severed even in this maelstrom of uncertainty. We stood poised on the brink, torn between the emotional turbulence of Sylvia's conflict and the undeniable force of our own fears. Mom, please. Mark's voice wavered, barely rising above the swirling chaos. What if confronting the dark leaves you vulnerable, more than you already are? What if he faltered, his eyes mirroring my own dread? What if it breaks you? At that moment, Sylvia's fierce gaze softened, the fire there flickering like a candle threatened by the rushing wind. But staying in the dark has already broken me, Mark. Every day, I wear a mask, smiling and pretending, and inside, I'm just as lost as I've ever been. I can't keep hiding. Not from you, not from myself. With each word, the shadows seemed to recede, as if compelled by the pure honesty of her confession. The fear swirling within me began to ebb away, replaced by a fragile thread of hope. Could this really be the moment she shifted towards healing, to finally embrace everything she had feared and fought against? But then, just as quickly, the realization struck me: what if it was too much? What if the memories were more powerful than anything we could control? But Mom, what if you lose control? I blurted out, my voice shaking. What if embracing the past means letting it consume you? With a resolute gaze, Sylvia stepped closer, defiance radiating from her. Then I will lean on you both. This journey has to be ours now. I won't go through it alone. Her voice rang with conviction, and that vulnerable space around us began to thrum with impending urgency. Before I could respond, a blinding light erupted from her core, pulling my attention away from the chaotic shadows. The light resembled a crashing wave, a powerful white crest illuminating the chasm of darkness that surrounded us. I gasped, breaths hitching in my throat as everything seemed to morph, reshaping our reality. Suddenly, the ground shuddered beneath us as if it too was trembling in reaction to Sylvia's decision. I lost my footing but stayed anchored, holding tight to Mark and to the shaky thread of resolve within me. It was both exhilarating and terrifying, a duality that sang in my veins, all of you, together. Now the shadows recoiled sharply as the tendrils twisted in a frenzied rage, and within that chaos, I glimpsed something, an image, fleeting and elusive. A younger Sylvia, laughing, a bittersweet memory momentarily unshackled. You've always had the strength, Mom. Just let it rise. Mark shouted, his voice unwavering. Sylvia nodded, her face raw with emotion, and began to hum, a soft and familiar tune that began to weave itself into the fabric of this tumultuous moment. As it flowed through the air, lacing around us like a warm embrace, the darkness settled, vibrating in pace with our heartbeats. The fears evaporated like morning fog caught in sunlight, replaced with the fragile essence of hope. If she could confront this together, perhaps, just perhaps, there was a way forward. It wasn't long before the echoes climbed higher, humming along with Sylvia's growing courage. At first, it was mere whispers, but as she let the melody weave through her memories, it morphed into a rich tapestry of sound, and for a moment, harmony surged amid the chaotic storm. Yet beneath the warm swell of the melody, I felt a creeping hesitation gnawing at my heart. With every note, the shadows rang more vibrantly in response, but they amplified the anguish buried within me. Memories of our shared past, the ugliness we had suppressed to keep moving forward, threatened to unravel at the seams. As the song billowed in intensity, I caught a glimpse of Mark out of the corner of my eye. A shiver echoed through his form as he swayed, uncertainty flashing across his features. He wasn't merely finding joy in Sylvia's reclaimed strength, he was grappling with his own submerged fears, the worry that if we unearthed too much, we might lose everything we've built in the aftermath. Mark. I reached for him, but uncertainty kept him one step away, poised on a tightrope of hope and fear. There's still time to step back, but before I could finish, a powerful wave surged around us, threatening to draw Sylvia and me deeper into the unknown. I fought against it, but the ground beneath me cracked, the melody I had clung to now mingling with dissonance, a deep, raw sorrow that clawed its way into my chest. No. Mark shouted, casting a pained glance back at me. We need to stay together, all of us. And then came a battle cry from within the depths of the shadows, something primal that sent shivers spiraling through the air. You cannot escape your past. The darkness seemed to roar, unveiling a tangled web of distorted memories. From the recesses of my mind, familiar faces flickered, friends, laughter, but also tears, accusations, love intertwined with bitterness. I felt the walls of my own resolve begin to sway. A new, uninvited chill wrapped around my heart, a revelation striking me like a bolt of lightning. We were not just reclaiming Sylvia's past. We were facing the ghosts of our own unshed tears, the haunting echoes of relationships that had withered and died under the weight of unacknowledged pain. Mark. I screamed, tugging on his shirt as shadows advanced once more, stretching and twisting like fingers longing to grasp. Sylvia began to waver, her song stuttered. The warmth was narrowing, sliding away as fear washed over her face. She understood now, perhaps even clearer than we did, that unearthing the past could bring more than just healing, it could expose the seams of the present that we held together so tightly. "Are you ready to embrace it all?" she asked, and in those precious seconds, the world felt suspended as we hovered on the precipice of something that could shatter us or save us, and then, as if the very fabric of our reality had been torn, a vision broke through. It wasn't merely our past that we faced, it was an ominous choice. Would we let the love we shared become our salvation, or would we let fear lead us like a fractured echo? In that moment of uncertainty, I felt the tide shifting, the shadows converging, pulling me into their depths. My heart raced, uncertainty hanging like fog. There was no answer to my unspoken question as the darkness closed in yet again, but in the very brink of despair, a glimmer of light broke through the chaos, solidifying my resolve that we had to confront this together, or risk being consumed. My last thoughts twisted into a prayer, a desperate plea for us to step forward, hand in hand as one. But just as my heart surged with newfound determination, the shadows thickened, growing more chaotic, more primal. "Mom. Over here." Mark's voice sliced through the tumult as unseen cracks began to rumble. Standing shoulder to shoulder, tied together by the power of shared love, we faced the onslaught of shadows. Light shimmered against the dark, and I felt the urge to move, yet my heart was tethered to the uncertainty swirling around us, and then, right before the shadows enveloped us, I caught a final glimpse, something lurking in the depths of the darkness, a flash of recognition, a memory unspooled, leaving my breath caught in my throat. An old photograph fell from the swirling chaos, fragile as glass, drifting slowly through the air. I reached out, desperate to hold on to it. It was the last piece of a puzzle I didn't know I needed, a tangible reminder of what lay at the other side of everything we faced. Before our hands could touch, the picture began to fade, a shocking cliffhanger, a daunting revelation that sparked all too vivid fears, and I realized, this journey had only just begun, and in this delicate moment, I knew what lay ahead was bound to change everything. The air was electric with the weight of unexpressed feelings as we stood frozen in time, panic clawing at our hearts like jagged nails. My hand hovered inches from the photograph, a symbol of everything we had built, yet everything we had lost. The shadows around us pulsed with malevolence, a stark reminder of the risks we were about to take. "Don't let go." Mark's plea sliced through the tumult, urging me back to him from the precipice of distraction. I felt his hand tightening around mine, grounding me in the swirling chaos. Sylvia, too, stared wide-eyed at the fading photograph, an anxious determination set on her face. The light was dimming, and with it, our dwindling chance to uncover whatever truth lay buried within the past. That moment, the air shifted, a warmth enveloped me, swirling around the sensation of dread like a soft comforter, pushing against the cold. It was as if I could feel Sylvia's strength flowing through our entwined hands, a direct line of trust that felt like a beating heart. But even as I drew comfort from her presence, a niggling uncertainty gnawed at me. What if facing this truth tore us apart instead of binding us? "Mark," I whispered, desperate to reinforce our connection amidst the chaos. "This is more than just your mother's journey. It's ours as well. We can't forget that our hearts hinge on each other, our family." The words tumbled out, but the fear didn't wane. What if unveiling Sylvia's pain unveiled our own wounds, laid bare for us all to see? "Together?" he asked, his voice unwavering even as uncertainty shone in his eyes. "Together," I promised, willing every ounce of my soul to make him believe in that shared vow. The darkness quivered, recoiling as if it sensed our resistance. Encouraged, I reached for the photograph again. The image grew clearer, the structure of it unraveling itself against the shadows. This was a moment of significance. It was our familial bond, a lacking thread that wrapped us in the warmth of remembrance. "Let's remind ourselves why we must do this," Sylvia urged, taking a single step forward, her resolve incandescent against the night. "There's a reason we're here. And there's strength in confronting what we've buried." With a surge of determination, I grasped the memory tightly, allowing it to flow into my heart. I felt Mark breathe with me, each inhale a reminder of the life swirling through us. "Now," I shouted, pushing through fear, "let's reclaim our story, everyone in it." The shadows bristled against our voices, intensifying. In response, Sylvia's song, though wavering, took on a new rhythm, a heartbeat of love intertwined with longing. It enveloped us, pushing back the darkness with a chorus of hope igniting within. But as our internal strength bloomed, the shadows began to claw at the edges of our minds again. They bore down on us with a primal fury, drawing forth whispered memory as me own confusion, Mark's dormant fears, Sylvia's deeper sorrow. They echoed through the air like a haunting symphony, each note a reminder of all we kept in the corners of our hearts. That I saw flashes of Sylvia as a young woman, the laughter, the bright-eyed hope, moments captured in time before sorrow wove itself into her essence. It tore my heart anew, the realization that this woman didn't begin her life shrouded in darkness. Life's tragedies had led her there. This is stronger than fear, Mom. You can face it. We can face it. Mark shouted, his voice sharpening against the growing cacophony. Don't let it take you back. We aren't looking to relive what's lost, we're ready to heal. In that moment, the shadows recoiled once more, but darkness wasn't about to yield easily, and I felt it pumping back life into whispers of resentment and pain, a chilling reminder of what lay beyond the veil. And then, just as I was about to respond, I caught a glimpse of a face I hadn't seen in years, a fleeting image of a friend I'd lost. My breath hitched, reality cracking open. Beneath this tumultuous storm of fear and strength, another truth rattled toward the surface, stark and real. What if this untangling brought not only the trauma of Sylvia's past but also the consequences of mine? Mom, please. I shouted, urgency filling my voice, wrestling against the tension coiling tighter with each breath. You can't fight this alone. And neither can we. The shadows began to flicker, momentarily stilling, the nighttime sighing almost in response. Then, like a thunderclap, hope struck again. A gust of fierce love pushed against the chaos, surging through as we clung to one another, determined. A chain woven not just of shared struggles, but of the love that had kept us, somehow, together despite the storms. Let it come, Sylvia murmured, suddenly calm. I'm ready. We're ready. Nothing can tear this apart. With a collective resolve, we pressed deeper into that flickering light, confronting that haunting past with open hearts. The photograph, glimmering with lost moments of happiness, seemed to pulse like a beacon of life, a representation of everything we held dear. But as I inhaled deeply, preparing us to forge ahead, something outside our immediate sight trembled, a lurking presence awakening in the shadows. Whispers turned to growls, and I knew, somewhere close, something or someone was watching, waiting for our next move. Not tonight. Mark shouted suddenly, a fierce defiance warming the air. Yet even in that fierce stand, the energy pulsed with uncertainty. The cracks around us expanded, threatening to swallow the very light we fought to protect. Just as I steeled myself for what lay ahead, I heard a distinct echo, a voice that twisted my heart into knots. A dim echo of a name reverberated within the folds of the darkness. Cynthia. And in that chilling moment, the truth washed away my certainty, leaving me shaking, visceral and raw. This was more than just a journey of healing, it was a confrontation of demons we never expected. Buried truths rising, mingling with the dawning reality that this battle was only beginning. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken fears, each heartbeat amplifying the enormity of the moment. I felt the weight of the name that had broken through the shadows, wrapping around me like icy tendrils. Cynthia. My friend. The one who had laughed with me, shared secrets under the stars, and was now what? A ghost from the past, or perhaps something worse. Cynthia. What do you mean? My voice barely broke through the tumult, shaking and uncertain. The echo faded like a half-formed thought, but the implications hung heavily in the air. What? Mark's face twisted with confusion, and I could sense the pressure building between us. His expression turned from frustration to concern, mirroring my own internal chaotic struggle. I don't know, I stammered, standing at the precipice of forgetting and remembering, driven back by an unwelcome tide of emotions. I just heard her name. Why is it here? Why now? A glimmer of something unnameable flickered in Sylvia's eyes as her grip tightened around mine, a fragment of understanding bridging the chasm of fear that had opened between us. Sometimes things we bury rise when we least expect them, she mused, her voice soft yet resonant, puncturing the dread with unexpected clarity. What did you two part with? What remains unspoken? It felt like a gaping wound in me, suddenly exposed in the harsh light of truth. The bonds of friendship had frayed long before her absence, our paths twisted by misunderstanding and grief. I hadn't only lost her, I had locked away fragments of my own heart alongside hers, sealed in a box I vowed never to open again. When she had needed me most, I had turned away, consumed by my own turmoil that I pushed her away, I admitted, the confession like a blade slicing through the tension. She needed me and I abandoned her. There were reasons, things I didn't understand. Tears threatened to spill as I breathed the unthinkable into existence, stripped bare from my defenses. I know I have to face it, but I'm scared. I'm scared of what it means to unearth those memories. Then let's face them together, Mark urged, his voice warm like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Cynthia may be an echo for you, but she's part of the story, part of your story. The only way out of this is through it, isn't that right, Mom? His eyes searching Sylvia's for reassurance. You once danced with those memories, Sylvia said, softening the weight of my terror with warmth. And even in darkness, there is beauty in those dances. Remember that. Her words felt like a bomb, but the shadows roiled with a new intensity, taking advantage of my fragile heart. Just as I began to accept the truth of my connection with my past, I felt a fresh wave of emptiness. The darkness thickened, bearing not just memories but the latent pain of unhealed wounds. Just then, a burst of light illuminated our surroundings, sunlight slicing through the cracks of chaos like a cosmic knife. And in that moment, I heard it again, the name that had become more than a memory, Cynthia. The shadows recoiled as the name echoed, twirling in its wake a shimmering film of realities that spun off in multiple directions. I felt a sudden rush of air. Was it hope, or was it trepidation? No, I whispered as recognition dawned. What if she's not just a name, a lost friend? What if bringing her up means confronting far deeper truths? Cynthia was more than just a friend to you, wasn't she? Mark pressed gently, his eyes searching mine as the light grew stronger around us, shimmering with unyielding promise. What if she's tied to the answers we seek? As my heart raced with the implications, the shadows grew weary, but their grip still sought to entrap us in desperation. Yet another voice emerged, barely audible. You have to decide. Decide? I echoed. Decide what, exactly? I looked between Mark and Sylvia, their expressions a mix of concern and belief. Whatever fears I held, they intertwiningly held too, their own pasts lingering just beneath the surface. An unspoken promise glimmered between us, a pact crafted through our shared aspirations, a vulnerability that had bared our wounds. But could we really walk this path together? Suddenly, far in the distance, I could see the silhouette of a figure emerging from the murky depths, cloaked in darkness yet enticing with the familiar. And though my heart raced, my spirit trembled in recognition. It was not a memory, not a ghost, but a tangible possibility. Could it be Cynthia? Could it truly be her? Do we dare? Sylvia whispered, her voice a thread of hope tangled inexorably with my fear. The space around us shifted, alive with tension, the kind that birthed choices. We stood suspended between the light of potential and the encroaching shadows of uncertainty. Each fiber of my being screamed to turn away, to hide behind the walls I had so carefully constructed. But deep within, a flicker of courage ignited, a kaleidoscope of longing and love tempered with vulnerability. Together, I repeated, steeling myself, yet overwhelmed by the gravity of my resolve. Let's stand together and face whatever lies ahead. But before the echoes of my words deigned to settle, that unexpected figure melded with the shadows, revealing a haunting a face I had thought lost to time and choice, standing at the edge of the cliff of my life, trembling with longing, a lost friend beckoning me to finally confront my deepest regret. Will you come home? Cynthia's voice lilted, honeyed yet shrouded in the ache of unfulfilled yearning. The very fabric of the universe seemed to stop in that moment, and I felt the collision of love, loss, and the haunting promise of an uncertain future. And just as I took a breath to respond, the shadows surged forward with urgency, a deluge against all our courage, threatening to drown the hope we had begun to build. The unseen watcher stirred, hungry for secrets, the reckoning waiting to descend. Caught in a tumultuous swell between trust and fear, I realized this was just the beginning. The warmth of Cynthia's presence tugged at something deep within me, a natural pull toward the familiar glow mixed with dread. Will you come home? She had asked, and the question hung in the air like a delicate ornament, teetering on the edge of heartbreak. Home, I repeated, each syllable tasting bittersweet on my tongue. That word represented so many things: security, comfort, and roots tangled in memories of laughter and love that now seemed like secret whispers of a ghost. Cynthia, I murmured, my voice barely above a whisper. The shadows surged, and I could feel Mark and Sylvia pressing in closer, bolstering my courage with their warmth, their shared uncertainty. They understood. We stood together, entwined in this unpredictable journey forward, but before I could gather my wits and reach out toward her, the shadows darkened around us, the air thickening as if we were trapped in a storm. No! I cried, raising my arms as if to shield Cynthia from this encroaching darkness. Not again. I can't lose you again, am not lost, she countered, her eyes shining with a fierce determination I couldn't quite reconcile. You've shrouded me with your fears. It's time to unearth the truth. You can't run from it anymore. What truth? Mark asked, his voice steady, cutting through the chaos. The truth of who I was, who we were, Cynthia replied, her gaze piercing through the shadows. Confronting our past is the only way to clear your way forward. You have to remember, the pieces will be scattered but they won't be lost. Come with me. I felt a rush of longing mingled with my growing fear. The shadows roared with rage, swirling like a tempest, eager to consume our courage. You won't find your way without the darkness, one of the shadows spoke, taking an almost human form, distorting the echoes of our fears into a specter fueled by grief. Stay with us where it's safe. That I wanted desperately to cling to the notion of safety, to retreat back to the comfortable cocoon of my past transgressions, where pain had been a distant specter. But now, facing Cynthia's urging eyes, I realized that what lay ahead wouldn't merely mean confronting my guilt, it meant confronting who I truly was beyond the mistakes. I can't go back and change the past, I said, my voice quivering with uncertainty. I was weak then, and am still frightened now. Strength isn't about not feeling fear, it's about facing it, Sylvia chimed in, her presence grounding me amidst the chaos. Cynthia is reaching out, just as we are. Change doesn't happen in solitude, we transcend together. Remember that. The word stung sweetly. I thought back to the connection I had found with both Mark and Sylvia, how our shared vulnerabilities had created sacred solidarity. As Cynthia's form shimmered in front of me, I felt the heaviness of all my regrets but also the lifting essence of unconditional love that dared to pierce through the shadows. I want to try, I found myself saying, my heart swelling, eyes steadying on Cynthia's face. I want to remember. A smile broke through Cynthia's demure expression, illuminating a path through the darkest corners of my past. Yet, as I took a step closer, the shadows lashed out more ferociously, wrenching my heart. Was this a way forward, or another trap? But just as I began to reconcile the distance between us, Mark's hand found mine, squeezing tightly. I turned to him, and his eyes bore a resolve I could shield myself with. Sylvia glanced between us, her smile a beacon of hope. Together, she insisted, holding on to Mark and me with both hands, uniting our resolve through a circle of connection. The shadows bellowed, recoiling with the brightness of our entwined energies, faltering against the invincible power we held, and just as I turned back to Cynthia, our eyes locking, the atmosphere alive with the thrum of reconciliation, a shattering sound reverberated through the air, slicing through our fragile moment. What's happening? Mark exclaimed, his voice a mix of alarm and confusion as the ground beneath us began to tremble, and fissures of darkness split the terrain. I could hear Cynthia's voice faintly. Above the commotion, urgent and imploring, it's not safe to stay here. You must choose, which truth will guide you, Cynthia? I shouted, desperate to grasp onto the thread that bound us. But the shadows responded with a sudden ferocity, twisting and pulling, separating us as if the very foundation of our hopes was cracking. That I couldn't let her go again, I wouldn't allow the shadows to steal this chance from me. Please don't leave. My heart shattered in the tumult of emotions clawing at me. But as I squeezed Mark's hand tighter, the ground quaked violently beneath us. I felt a surge of energy coaxing me forward. A familiar face within the shadows caught my eye, a fragment of the past intertwining with Cynthia's, a past I'd thought long buried. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, everything fell silent that I stood at the precipice of possibility, facing forward while shadows clawed at my back, and amidst the chaos, I finally understood the haunting truth was not just mine to confront. Suddenly, a low whisper echoed, "Come back to us." Those words, simple yet piercing, reverberated through the stillness that surrounded me. I turned to see the edge of a pathway shimmering with light, illuminated by our unity, yet the shadows loomed behind, threatening to ensnare us once again. Was I ready to choose? The air hung heavy with expectation, a tangible pulse that seemed to thrum against my chest as I stood on that precipice, staring down at the illuminated path that beckoned me forward. My heart raced with a torrent of emotions: fear, longing, hope, and intertwined with it was an unyielding resolve that began to coil around my spirit, urging me to embrace the unfolding moment. Which truth will guide you? That question lingered like smoke, curling through my mind, pulling back layers of self-doubt that had clouded my vision for so long. Instead of retreating into the shadows, I felt compelled to step toward the light, a choice that felt monumentally daunting, yet intoxicating in its promise. Cynthia's silhouette shimmered, a vibrant spark against the darkness that surrounded us. "You've always held the candle, even when the shadows closed in, but now it's time to light the way for us all," she urged, her voice a melody of warmth that warmed the room. "We're right here," Mark affirmed, squeezing my hand again, his presence a delightful anchor amidst the storm. "Fight back, and let it become strength from within." I felt the weight of his words; they wrapped around me like armor, a reinforcing shield that pushed back against the chaotic noise. I glanced at Sylvia, whose eyes shimmered with a fierce bravery I hadn't seen before. "It's time to confront what you've buried so deeply," she said, her voice steady, sending a chill of recognition through me. "Let your memory be the catalyst. We're here with you." The shadows roared with rage, furious at our display of courage, but as my heart quickened, I realized I was no longer standing alone. Together, we formed a barricade against the suffocating tendrils of self-doubt that sought to pull me back into the darkness. "I won't turn away," I breathed, the determination settling in my bones. "Not again." With each passing moment, the light before us grew brighter and the echoes of my past softened, revealing memories, long-shuttered moments of laughter shared with Cynthia, heartfelt conversations that stripped my soul bare, and the bittersweet warmth of connection forged by the fires of our youth. Suddenly, the shadows surrounding us grew smaller, pushed back as if frightened by the encroaching light and the fierce love we shared. "Every piece of your past matters," Cynthia encouraged, her shadows swirling around her like playful whispers. "Face the truth, let it guide you." Instinctively, I knew I would have to confront the hurt I'd encased within me, sense of abandonment, my heartbreak over Cynthia's loss, and the guilt of leaving behind the memories. With every heartbeat, I felt the quiet strength of acceptance unfurling, mingling with courage, the power to walk through these chaotic shadows hand in hand, with Mark and Sylvia by my side. "That I am ready to remember," I declared aloud, summoning every ounce of willpower. As I took that first step forward into the flickering light, everything around us began to shift delicately. Merging shadows spilled over the specters of reality, and as they collided, the beauty of remembrance cascaded like a waterfall, enveloping me entirely. That in an instant, I was flooded with visions. Cynthia's laughter echoed in the air, intertwining with Sylvia's melodies, a beautiful symphony threading together our memories. It felt as if the music of my heart resonated against the backdrop of light, intertwining with our collective past. Mark and Sylvia remained steadfast, their hands clasped tightly around mine, and as if sensing our shared intent, the shadows retreated, revealing a path illuminated by the vibrant glow of our intertwined lives. "We can rewrite our story," I whispered, a surge of clarity coursing through my veins. "Not one of loss, but of connection, of love that transcends." Cynthia smiled wider, her warm presence unfurling like vivid petals in sunlight. "Yes, my friend. Embrace the embrace of memories, they are the roots of your future." And in one fell swoop, the darkness that had tried to claim us began to unravel, dissolving like smoke against the brilliance of daytime, leaving behind only echoes of laughter burgeoning in the air. Each acknowledgement drew forth a song that I thought was lost, but now transformed into a hum of life, slowly but surely stitching together our fragmented lives. "Remember the warmth," Sylvia sang softly, her voice threading harmonies into existence, caught in the whirlwind of fragile yet unwavering hope. As I looked into the faces of Mark and Sylvia, I saw the reflection of everything I had longed for: forgiveness, love, and acceptance that demanded to be freed from their binds. In this moment of profound clarity, the shadows shrank further back, surrendering to our resolve, and the brilliance of connection prevailed. With hearts pulled close together, we stepped from that tumultuous threshold of uncertainty into the shimmering light, the remnants of our memories spinning beautifully into the tapestry of our lives. Together, I whispered, feeling reborn as we ventured into this new melody, filled with intricate notes of healing intertwined with the love we had cultivated, and as the last remnants of darkness vanished, leaving only a soft hum of remembrance in its wake, I realized it was no longer just a story I shared with them. It became an everlasting symphony, a testament to the resilience of love amidst the trials of life. That I, and the closing embrace of twilight, as golden hues kissed the horizon, I vowed to write the rest of our story, not just for us, but for all those who had ever danced in the shadows. And with every note, I now understood, love isn't simply about remembrance, it's about creation, about weaving the beautiful and the painful into a magnificent tapestry that holds the promise of tomorrow, one heartbeat at a time. As we stepped forward, hands interlocked, the final echoes of our song burgeoned forth, illuminating the night. And with that, one truth rang clear: a new chapter began, free from the weight of silence, filled with the music of our hearts, echoing the promise to always find our way back home.